Are you using Chat GPT right now? I think
Serious.
it's a rival conference because I heard a school mention that's not an SEC school.
Yeah, it's serious. Freaking me out right now.
Hey there, sports fans. Welcome back. If you love baseball, if you love softball, we have an episode for you this week. Hey, if you're new to the show, do us a favor right now, hit that subscribe button. That really goes a long way to helping us get the show out to other people that might like this format and might like the
Absolutely.
topic. And so that would really mean a lot to us. So if you would go ahead and do that, thank you in advance for doing that. So, Darren, let's get right into SEC baseball, where
This
you seem to be extremely happy
it
today.
seems there's something really what oh, there it is. That's thank you, Tim Corbin. We love you.
Congratulations to Vanderbilt, their fifth SEC championship. Darren, I'm going to yield the floor to you because this is your team.
And I'm going to be 100% transparent. If you would have asked me at the start of the week, is this a Vanderbilt tournament win? I would have honestly probably said at least to the finals. I can see that. I wouldn't guarantee it, but I could see to the finals. I feel like we've got pitching that can get us a championship, but the bats have been a little inconsistent, and that scares me a little bit. So I think we could get to the finals. Who we play determines the championship. So to watch how it all unfolded, anytime you go against Tennessee, Tony Vitello and this Tennessee team, that's scary. It couldn't be more proud of the pitching to take a Tennessee team that earlier in the week had scored 15 runs and not only shut them out, but the bats get going and run rule them in the conference champion or in the tournament. So absolutely incredible. Sorry, Tennessee fans. I don't feel bad saying this because if it were reversed, you would feel the same way, and that's okay. It's part of the competition, but that adds a little bit of extra to it. It makes it even better. And then this Ole Miss team, it was a little scary as well because it's like sometimes you watch a team play, oof, they seem to have the momentum. This seems to kind of be, because the last time Ole Miss made it to the championship, it was just like there's not a reason they're here, but it's their year. So it's like, oh, is it that way again? But I mean, that was such a fun and exciting game to come down to basically they had to shut Ole Miss down in that top of the ninth, and they did. So great win, incredible fielding, great pitching, and the bats came alive when they needed to. I don't know what more you could ask for your team. It's been a fun weekend.
I think you're excited, my friend, and you have every reason to be so.
Absolutely.
Congratulations to your Vanderbilt Commodores. That gets us focused now on Omaha and the
Omaha.
projected seedings that have not yet come out official as of the recording of this week's episode, but we have some projections. And Darren, I believe the one that you have on the screen for us, it comes from Baseball America. So
Yes.
why don't you go through? I'm counting off the top of my head. They're projecting 13 SEC teams.
Is that not unreal? 13 SEC teams, and 8 of them are hosting. That's absolutely incredible. And now some of the hosting, like D1, USA Today, don't necessarily agree on, but Baseball America is usually pretty close. So they have a pretty high percentage at the end of the day of what their projections look like. So you've got Vanderbilt, Texas, Arkansas, LSU, Georgia, Auburn, Tennessee, and Ole Miss all hosting, and Oklahoma, Mississippi State, Alabama, and Florida all really. There's no 4 seeds; they're all 2 or 3 seeds in their regional where they're going. So still could be in a good spot. Not have to necessarily win, fight the number one team, the host team coming, right out of the chute. So they're still in good shots for those. There are good places for those teams that aren't hosting, but absolutely incredible. 13 teams going, 8 teams hosting. It just means more. How's that?
Well done, my friend. Well done. Certainly a bright moment for the SEC. Again,
Absolutely.
these are not official yet.
Right.
These are projections. And
Mhm.
so we're looking around 13 SEC teams. So maybe plus or minus one.
Absolutely.
We'll see when the seedings come out, but it will definitely be a field that is well represented by
Yep.
the SEC.
And I will throw one more thing in. You say it could be, plus or minus. Obviously, there could be a little wiggle room in there, but one of the things consistent across the board with all the projections I've looked at is Texas A&M is listed as first four out. So there is a possibility that they could take that step up, depending on where the committee is, how they view where Texas A&M is at this time. So that could possibly be they're right there on the edge of being that 14 team. They're first four out all the way across the board. So
Yeah, yeah. On the women's side of things, they're doing fairly well. Also,
yeah,
when you look at the 8 teams in the Women's College World Series, we have 5 SEC schools: Florida, Texas, Tennessee, Ole Miss, and perennial powerhouse Oklahoma. Which, as we said last week, neither
yeah.
one of us sees anybody beating Oklahoma again this year. Darren, your thoughts on the Women's College World Series?
Yeah, I don't think there's anything that's happened in this first round or getting us to Oklahoma City that's made us go, ooh, maybe not. They're still sitting there. They're still look incredible. Now Tennessee, Texas still look very, very strong. But like we said before, unless Oklahoma gives us a reason to think otherwise, why would you choose anybody else? They look so strong.
And they don't have to travel far to play in the College World Series. It's right there in Oklahoma City.
That'll build a crowd. That I
So
don't think that'll be a problem.
right, you'll have the Women's College World Series, and the Oklahoma City Thunder are still playing in the
That's
Western
right.
Conference Finals. Pretty exciting time to be in Oklahoma City.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Great point.
So, moving from baseball and softball, let's go to some big news out of college football where a major change was voted on
Yeah.
this week. And that is to go to a straight seeding format when it comes to the college football playoff. Darren, explain what that means and what it would look like this year compared to if it had been straight seeding.
Well, the big thing that will change is no matter if you're a conference champion or not, you will the seedings will be from 1 to 16. You don't get a seeding preference, you don't get an automatic bye, anything like that if you're a conference champion. It is a straight who the committee sees as number 1, who the committee sees as 16, and everything in the middle. And the thing that doesn't change is there are still automatic bids, but there are those bids have nothing to do, from those conferences and from the highest, basically non-4, they still get in, but they could in theory get in and still be the 16th seed. So there's nothing that guarantees because you are a conference champion that got in, you're going to be a 3 or a 2, whatever. You could still be a 16th seed. So where it does get really interesting is if you go backwards and say, what would last year have looked like if I think we can all agree this is a change that needed to be made. It was a silly thing to begin with. It should have been. I'm okay with automatic bids. Basically, these conference champions get in. I don't have a problem with that, but I think it should be straight seeding. So I'm glad to see that. I think it's something that shouldn't have existed from the beginning, and I'm glad that they have corrected that. So if we wouldn't have had the silliness of last year, of this being a thing last year, what would that have looked like? So this is where it gets really interesting. So this is last year. This is last year. The way it's set up with the different seating rules based on conference championship. So we know Clemson played Texas, Tennessee played Ohio State, Penn State played SMU, Indiana and Notre Dame played each other, and then you roll into these games where Tennessee gets beat. Ohio State absolutely embarrassed Oregon. I don't think there's any other way to look at that. And then you end up with our national championship uh, that we had, where Ohio State just, some might say the seedings really didn't matter. Ohio State was going to do their thing. That being said, I think you can look at the way it should have been with straight seedings and see that we had some really interesting matchups that could have gotten place. And our Tennessee fans, who I just offended, I'll bring back on board and say, much more beautiful place to start than having to go to Ohio State, to be at home in Knoxville playing SMU, to have Notre Dame start against Clemson instead of Indiana, to have Indiana and Boise State play makes sense. Penn State being one of those teams that ends up on the second in that second week having that bye makes a lot more sense.
Are you using Chat GPT right now?
Out of nowhere, my phone just all of a sudden decided that it was going to start recording to send a text message. So
I think it's a rival conference, because I heard a school mention that's not an SEC school.
Yeah, it's serious, freaking me out right now. So now that I'm gonna turn Siri over, I don't know what's. If we look at our potential second round matchups, a Notre Dame or a Clemson against a Penn State, Oregon obviously would have much rather played Indiana or Boise State. No slight intended. An Ohio State, Texas second round, a Tennessee, Georgia second round. Man, those are incredible games. And it would have made a whole lot more sense from the get-go. So I'm glad that they have corrected this. I think the way last year would have shaped up compared to what it ended up looking like shows that this is the correct route. And I'm glad to see it happening.
Yeah, I think it's huge news for college football. It's a much needed change, and right with you, Darren. Thanks for explaining that and showing us on paper here or on the screen how it would have changed things this year. It makes it more exciting as we consider the upcoming season.
Absolutely.
So this next part, Darren, all you said to me was it's going to involve a lot of guessing. So I'm on the edge of my seat here. Tell us what we're getting ready to jump into.
All right. The most fun guessing game is when someone else has to guess. So you have to guess. So each year, Athlon Sports puts out their football guide. The same, it's like a Phil Steele, a Pick Six preview. Everybody, several different football guides that are put out. As part of Athlon Sports for a decade plus, their football guide, they have put out anonymous coaching, not critiques necessarily, but scouting reviews. Let's say that anonymous coaching scouting, where head coaches, assistant coaches, there's no specification, but they give their thoughts, their scouting, their preseason look at other teams, conditional on anonymity, so they don't hold back. Their name is never put to it, so they really throw it out there. Here's what I think about this team this year. So for the fun of watching you guess, we're going to play a little game. I'm going to give you a short quote from an anonymous coach about an SEC team. They do it for all the teams. Obviously, all we're worried about is the SEC. About an SEC team, and you tell me what team you think this is about. Ready?
Ready.
All right. First quote. The biggest question will be quarterback, obviously, but they have a really solid defensive line, or offensive line, sorry, and the roster doesn't have any obvious holes to fill. They're going to compete for a playoff spot for sure. What SEC team is this anonymous coach talking about?
Well, you go through the schools. Who has questions at quarterback?
Mm-hmm.
And no obvious holes to fill in the roster. So who did not lose a lot? So
Okay.
that's another question. So if I remember correctly, Alabama did not lose any players to the transfer portal. They have a pretty decent offensive line, and they've got 3 guys competing for the quarterback position. That's my guess.
So, final answer. You, sir, are correct.
Oh my
Alabama.
goodness.
That was an anonymous coach's view of Alabama. And the reason I threw that in there for us to talk about and for you to guess who it was is I think it's interesting that other coaches are looking at this Alabama squad and saying this is a team that contends for a playoff spot. So
I'm so excited I got that right. I
hey, you
almost said roll, but
let's not get silly.
it wasn't that big of a victory.
No, that's right. But still, nice. You are now 1 for 1, batting 1,000. We'll put a little baseball in it. How's that?
And this is where I give my retirement speech.
Yeah. Well, what was that? Bernie Mac and that Mr. 3000 or something like that. Do you remember that? Oh, it's like as soon as he got his 3000th hit, I'm out. See ya.
Later.
All right. Next quote from an anonymous coach. I don't think this is the same level of talent we've seen in the last 3 or 4 years. I think you might see a decline, at least at first, on both lines of scrimmage.
See who's really been up there the last 3 or 4 years. Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they'd be talking about Tennessee. Level of talent. I know LSU's lost on both lines, both sides of the ball. I'm going to go with Georgia.
You, sir, are 2 for 2. Nice. And I would just to say, with you starting off, I'd like to say, with you starting off batting 1,000, we did not discuss these in advance. I specifically held them from you, so it is a legit 2 for 2. Well done.
All right, that's it, right? We're done.
It's not that easy. Come on. But I will say it's interesting that when other coaches can speak without, behind the curtain,
Yeah.
they're willing to say this might be a year we see a drop off when it comes to Georgia. So pretty interesting.
Yeah.
So,
all
right. Number 3. They have playoff expectations here, and it's a better depth chart than he's had in city school. We didn't want to give that away. If they aren't in the CFP, I think there's some serious pressure here.
I don't know going into this year who has bigger playoff expectations than LSU with the number 1 transfer portal. With the talent, the depth that they've added through the transfer, kind of getting the in-state recruits in addition to the transfer portal.
Mm-hmm.
Brian Kelly, serious pressure. But you could also argue that could be Texas.
Very true.
Boy, I'm going to say LSU.
And you, sir, listen to your heart, and it was correct.
I almost talked myself into Texas.
When I read that one, that was the first. What went through my head was it would almost seem silly that someone would say that about Sarkisian, but that makes it almost feel legit if it seems to be that silly. So I thought that might throw you off a little bit, but
Sure.
Well done, sir.
Oh, thanks.
And you and I have talked about it. It's a no-brainer. I mean, not only is there a ton of pressure from the outside, but when you end last season with the disappointment that it was by saying, we'll see you in the playoffs, you've raised the bar of expectation even further. So
yeah,
if they don't get there, there's going to be some pressure. I think that's a very, very accurate statement.
Yeah. Yeah.
All
Absolutely.
right. Number 4. They're one of the best programs in the country at evaluating the portal, and they've done a very good job integrating that talent and winning right away. But this is still an inconsistent program. The loss at Florida last year is an example of why coach's name isn't considered an elite coach.
I'm thinking lost to Florida,
Mm-hmm.
Ole Miss, high expectations.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they do good through the portal.
Mm-hmm.
Inconsistent. You could argue with the expectations last year. They didn't meet those. And the knock on Kiffin is, I think you say sometimes, what, big game lane.
Big game lane.
So I'm gonna go with Ole Miss here.
And you, sir, are correct again. Well done.
Now can we stop?
Oh, I still got 2 more. We're not gonna let you off that easy. Here's the thing with Kiffin. To me, I felt like that was one we had to talk about because we do make the joke about big game lane, but apparently, obviously, we're not the only people that see that. There are coaches that are in it every single day that look at it and say, "You're not elite because when it's supposed to happen, you don't." You fall. Those big games you fall down on. So I found that pretty interesting.
Right. That is, yeah.
All right. Number 5. I think number 5. Yeah. So we did a total of 6. So this is second to last. This is why you invest in NIL over facilities. This is why you have to be serious about personnel. These coaches didn't suddenly learn how to coach. Coach's name here is a fantastic, sharp defensive mind, and now he's got a roster capable of winning games in the league. What team is this anonymous coach talking about?
Why you invest in NIL over facilities? Coach. Sharp defensive mind. Well, that knocks out Arkansas and Mississippi State.
Yeah, very true.
Now he's got a roster capable. I mean, think about Elko at A&M. Sarkisian's not a defensive mind.
Mm-mm.
I don't see that pertaining to Florida, why you invest in NIL over facilities.
No, Florida invests in everything.
I'm gonna go with A&M.
Vanderbilt.
Oh, Clark Lee.
I wasn't going to bring him up. No way I was going to give you that.
Well, now that's that's obvious when you see the answer. Wow.
NIL over facilities, great defensive mind. Yeah.
How did I miss Clark Lee?
To me, the thing that really stood out about that quote is another coach saying these guys have built a roster that will give them a chance to win games in the league. Honestly, when's the last time that was said about Vanderbilt?
Yeah.
I mean, truthfully, it's been a long time. So probably since James Franklin that those words were said about Vanderbilt. So that really stood out to me as a very, very positive thing.
I should have known you're going to sneak a Vanderbilt in there.
If there's the LSU, I'm going to throw in a Vanderbilt. I got to get our teams in, right?
Yeah.
All right, last one. It's a huge gamble that the QB can come in and immediately acclimate to playing against the defenses in this league. We'll see if he can do it because that's what will determine this staff's future.
quarterback can come in. So you're talking about a quarterback from the transfer portal.
Mm-hmm.
So that eliminates quite a few.
Or a first-year starter.
I'm thinking of, when you talk about a staff's future hanging in the balance,
Mm-hmm.
which coaching staffs are on the hot seat? Oklahoma is certainly on the hot seat, and they brought in John Mateer,
Mm-hmm.
and there's big expectations. And if he doesn't do well, if Oklahoma has another 500 or 6-win, 7-win season,
Yeah.
I don't know if Venables keeps that job. I'm gonna go with Oklahoma.
And you?
No,
5 for 6, man. That is a nice run there. Well done. Well done.
Yeah, I'm never gonna live it down that the one I got wrong was Vanderbilt.
And I almost felt like I was throwing you a softball. I'm gonna be honest.
Well, now that I know the answer, it was a softball.
Exactly. And speaking of the Vanderbilt, Oklahoma and Vanderbilt, we've made this tie, and the quotes were close to a paragraph on each team. So I just wanted to pull out a sentence or a snippet. The anonymous coach that gave their scouting report on Oklahoma actually mentioned Venables has seen what some of the things that Vanderbilt did, and is going to follow that playbook. Bring in the quarterback, bring in the offensive coordinator, bring in the quarterback coach. Take the reins in the area that you know the most about, which is what Clark Lee did last year, and now Venables is doing this year. So some very interesting parallels between what he's doing this year at Oklahoma and what Vanderbilt did last year. So,
all right.
and I think that's accurate. It does kind of hang in the balance. They're in a difficult spot.
Yeah, I say things could go either way in Norman. We'll see how the season pans out. But great questions, and my friend, I'm already going to plot how to return the favor to you in a future episode.
Well, remember, 5 for 6. I'm just saying, it went well. I'm just throwing it out there.
Yeah. Well, we hope you enjoyed this episode as much as we did, and maybe you got the quote 6 for 6. If you did, let us know and tell Darren why you should be his co-host instead of me. We'd love to hear from you. New episodes drop every Tuesday. Enjoy this postseason college and baseball, and we'll keep gearing up for the fast approaching college football season. Until next Tuesday, y'all take care.
Have a great week.
Thank you for making the Brew and Shaver Sports Podcast your go-to sports show. Be sure to subscribe, rate, and review our show if you haven't already. Your feedback is so important. Let us know what you think about this week's show. Send an email to brewandshavers@gmail.com or a text to our text line 318-390-3599. We look forward to hearing from you. Thank you again for listening to the Brew and Shaver Sports Podcast. See you next week.